The words came out of her mouth like poison as she stood there in her pristine wedding gown, just hours before her big day. Honestly, Helen, the greatest gift you could give us for our wedding would be if you just disappeared from our lives completely. Sarah smiled that fake smile I had grown to despise, while my son Kevin nodded his agreement without even looking in my direction. The casual cruelty of it took my breath away. If you are watching this, please subscribe and let me know where you are watching from in the comments. I need your support to keep sharing these stories. Let me give you the context of how I ended up in this nightmare situation. 3 years earlier, I had made what I thought was the ultimate sacrifice for my son and his fiancée. I sold the Victorian cottage that my late husband Frank and I had lovingly restored over 2 decades. That house was my sanctuary, filled with 40 years of memories, but I liquidated it to give Kevin and Sarah $92,000 for their dream home down payment. They promised me I would always have a place there, always be welcomed as family. Now here we were, the night before their lavish wedding that I was personally financing, and Sarah was telling me I should vanish forever. You heard what she said, Mom. Kevin finally spoke, his voice devoid of warmth. Tomorrow is supposed to be the most important day of our lives. Having you around with your negative energy is just ruining the whole experience for us. My negative energy. I had spent the entire morning arranging their bridal flowers, the afternoon running last-minute errands for their reception, and the evening listening to Sarah complain about everything from the florist to the band. The only remotely negative thing I had done was suggest that perhaps we did not need a chocolate fountain and an ice cream bar at the same event. Where exactly am I supposed to go? I asked, keeping my voice steady despite the rage building inside me. Sarah examined her freshly manicured nails with theatrical boredom. I do not really care, Helen. Hotel your brother anywhere but here. Tomorrow is my special day, and I refuse to have it ruined by your presence. This is my son's house too, I reminded her quietly. Actually, Kevin cleared his throat uncomfortably. It is really more Sarah's house now. She has been making all the decorating decisions, handling the social calendar, managing everything. You just gave us some money that one time. Some money that one time. My $92,000 life savings had been reduced to some money that one time. I looked around the kitchen where I had cooked countless family meals, seeing the marble countertops I had helped choose, the custom cabinetry my money had made possible. These people had taken everything I offered and rewritten the narrative to make themselves the victims of my generosity. That was when something inside me clicked into place. Not snapped, but clicked like a puzzle piece finding its proper position. I realized I had been accepting breadcrumbs of respect in exchange for massive financial sacrifices, and I was done with that arrangement. You know what, I said softly, you are absolutely right. I should disappear. Sarah looked genuinely surprised. She had probably expected tears, begging, or one of those emotional scenes she could later describe to her friends as Helen being impossible again. I will pack my things and be gone within 2 hours, I continued. You want me to disappear from your lives, and I am finally ready to honor that request. Kevin actually looked relieved. That is probably the smartest thing, Mom. We can talk after the honeymoon when everything settles down. Talk after the honeymoon. As if this was merely a scheduling conflict, rather than them throwing out the woman who had made their lifestyle possible. I went upstairs to what they called the guest room. Never my room, always the guest room, because guests eventually leave. As I folded my clothing into suitcases, I could hear them downstairs already planning how to use the space. Sarah wanted it converted into a craft room. Kevin thought it would make an excellent home gym. Neither seemed troubled by the fact that they were displacing the person who had funded their perfect life. I paused at Frank's photograph on the nightstand. 42 years of marriage, and he had never made me feel like an intruder in my own home. Do not worry, darling, I whispered to his image. This is far from over. But first I needed to make some phone calls. Sitting in my car outside their house. No, outside the house my money had purchased. I called my attorney emergency line. Patricia Wong had been handling my legal matters since Frank's passing, and she had insisted on certain protective measures during the house purchase. Helen, it is Friday night. Is there an emergency? I told her everything. Sarah, ultimatum, Kevin, betrayal, their casual dismissal of my contribution. Patricia listened silently, though I could hear rapid typing. Helen, I have been expecting this call for months. The way they have been treating your investment as charity rather than what it legally represents. What do you mean what it legally represents? You do not remember the additional paperwork I required. The documents I insisted on when you first expressed concerns about Sarah's spending habits. My pulse quickened. Patricia, please tell me you protected me somehow. Helen, that $92,000 was not a gift in the legal sense. It was structured as an investment loan with your name registered as co-owner on the property deed. Sarah never completed the acknowledgement forms I sent multiple times. I almost dropped the phone. Are you serious right now? Completely serious. Sarah kept postponing signing the final paperwork. And you were so focused on maintaining family peace that you never pushed the issue. But legally, you own 38% of that property. Through their kitchen window, I could see Sarah on a video call with someone, probably her mother, gesticulating wildly about wedding details. She had no idea her world was about to collapse. Patricia, hypothetically, what happens if I want to liquidate my ownership share? As a legal co-owner, you have every right to force a property sale. The other owners get first opportunity to purchase your share at current market value, of course. And if they cannot afford to buy me out, then the property goes to market and proceeds are divided according to ownership percentages. I watched Kevin pop champagne in their kitchen, celebrating what he thought was freedom from his burdensome mother. Patricia, I need you to prepare legal notice of my intent to sell. I want it served Monday morning first thing. Helen, are you certain about this path? Once we begin this process, I have never been more certain of anything in my life. They want me gone permanently. Fine. But I am taking my 38% with me when I go. After ending that call, I sat in the growing darkness watching my son and his bride-to-be toast their future in the house I had made possible. They had no clue that within 72 hours, their perfect world would be in ruins. But I had one more important call to make first. Grandview Country Club, this is Maria speaking. Hello Maria, this is Helen Parker. I need to speak with your catering director about tomorrow's wedding reception. Oh Mrs. Parker, how exciting! The big day is finally here. How may I assist you? Unfortunately, there has been a change of plans. I need to cancel the entire reception. Cancel. But ma'am, the wedding is tomorrow. The food preparation is complete. Staff are scheduled. I understand completely, and I am prepared to pay all cancellation penalties. The important thing is that I signed the contracts and provided the deposit. I believe that gives me authority to make changes. Papers rustled in the background. Let me verify. Yes, everything is under your name and credit card. But surely you want to discuss this with the bride and groom first. No discussion necessary. I am making an executive decision based on new information. Please cancel everything immediately. Mrs. Parker, with respect, this seems like something the happy couple should be involved in. I watched Sarah through the window, adjusting her veil for probably the 50th time today. The happy couple made it crystal clear that my involvement in their lives is no longer welcome. I am simply respecting their wishes by removing my financial involvement as well. 30 minutes later, I was checked into the Marriott downtown, ordering room service and experiencing something I had not felt in years. The satisfaction of taking control of my own destiny. My phone started ringing at 11:23 p.m. What did you do? Sarah's voice shrieked so loudly I had to hold the phone away from my ear. I honored your request, I replied calmly, muting the television in my hotel room. You wanted me to disappear permanently, so I disappeared. The country club called. They said you cancelled our reception. Our wedding reception, Helen. I'm sure they did. That sounds like quite a problem for you to solve. There are 150 people expecting dinner tomorrow. Yes, I imagine there are. You and Kevin are resourceful people. I am confident you will figure something out. Kevin grabbed the phone. Mom, this is completely insane. You cannot cancel our wedding because you are upset about sleeping arrangements. I did not cancel your wedding, sweetheart. You can still get married tomorrow. I simply canceled the reception that I was paying for. You know, the one costing me $16,000. Dead silence. I had never mentioned the actual cost before, always deflecting when they asked about expenses, preferring to be their generous mother while they remained oblivious to the financial reality. 16,000. Amanda's voice was barely a whisper now. The reception, the flowers, the photographer, the string quartet. Did you assume it was all free? Did you think money materialized from thin air because you two decided to have a fairy tale wedding? But we cannot tell 150 people there is no reception. Kevin stammered. You are both intelligent adults. I trust you will find a solution. I hear Pizza Hut caters now. Sarah was crying now, loud, ugly sobs that might have made me feel guilty 6 months ago. Now they just sounded like the tantrums she had been throwing throughout the entire engagement period. How could you do this to us? We trusted you. She wailed. You trusted me. You literally told me the greatest gift I could give would be to disappear from your family permanently. I did not mean forever. I just meant for the weekend. I see. So, when you said permanently, you actually meant temporarily. How was I supposed to understand that distinction? Kevin tried a different approach. Mom, please be reasonable. Come back to the house and we can work this out like adults. The house where I am no longer welcome. The house where my presence ruins everything. Think not. Where are you even staying? Sarah demanded through her tears. That is no longer your concern, is it? You made it very clear that my living arrangements are my problem to solve. I could hear frantic whispering in the background as they tried to figure out how to undo the catastrophe they had created. Can you at least call the country club back? Kevin pleaded. Maybe explain it was all a misunderstanding. It was not a misunderstanding. It was a very deliberate business decision made by the person who was financing everything. But what about our guests? Sarah's family is flying in from Oregon. What about them? You are still getting married. They can still witness that beautiful moment. They just will not receive a free gourmet dinner afterward. Sarah grabbed the phone again. You are being spiteful and vindictive. No, dear. Spiteful and vindictive was telling the woman funding your dream wedding to disappear permanently from your lives. I am simply being fiscally responsible. This will ruin everything. Everyone will think we are broke. Well, now that you mention it, I let that hang in the air, savoring their panic. What do you mean by that? Kevin's voice was tight with fear now. I mean, without my ongoing financial support, you probably will be struggling quite soon. That is another conversation we need to have. What are you talking about? More frantic whispering in the background. I'm talking about your actual household budget versus your expenses. Have you looked at those numbers lately? Because I have been supplementing your lifestyle in ways you probably have not even noticed. Those were gifts, Sarah said weakly. Were they? Because from my perspective they look more like allowance payments. An allowance can be discontinued at any time. The silence stretched so long I thought they had hung up. Finally Kevin spoke. What do you want from us, Mom? Now that was interesting. An hour ago they could not wait to be rid of me. Now they wanted to negotiate. I want exactly what you offered me. To disappear from your lives permanently. And I plan to take my money with me when I go. By Sunday morning my phone showed 42 missed calls and 38 text messages. I ignored them all while enjoying room service breakfast and reading the newspaper in peace. The wedding was scheduled for 3 p.m. At 10 a.m. someone knocked on my hotel door. Through the peephole, I saw Kevin in his wrinkled dress shirt, looking like he had not slept. Mom, we need to talk urgently. I opened the door but did not invite him inside. Should you not be getting ready for your special day? That is what I need to discuss. Sarah is having a complete breakdown. She has locked herself in the bathroom and refuses to come out. Her parents are threatening to leave. The whole thing is falling apart. I am sorry to hear about your difficulties. I hope you can resolve them. Resolve them. Mom, you destroyed our wedding. No, son. I withdrew my financial support from your wedding. There is a significant difference. He pushed past me into the room and I let him. Sometimes people need to hang themselves with their own words. This is insane. Over what? A disagreement about guest room arrangements. Sit down, Kevin. Something in my tone made him comply immediately. I remained standing, looking down at my 38-year-old son who was finally beginning to understand that actions have consequences. This is not about room arrangements. This is about basic human respect. This is about gratitude. This is about treating the person who made your comfortable lifestyle possible like a family member instead of an inconvenience. We have always treated you well. Have you? When was the last time you asked about my life, my interests, my feelings? When was the last time you invited me somewhere because you wanted my company, not because you needed my help or my money? He opened his mouth, then closed it again. I waited patiently. When was the last time you called just to talk? When was the last time you remembered my birthday without Facebook reminding you? When was the last time you treated me like your mother instead of your personal bank account? That is not fair. Is it not? In the past year alone, how much money have I given you and Sarah? I do not know exactly. A few thousand here and there for emergencies. $43,000. His face went pale. $43,000 in emergencies and little helps and just until we get back on our feet. On top of the $92,000 for the house. That is $135,000, Kevin. More than most families earn in 2 years. We were always planning to pay you back eventually. Were you? Because Sarah has been shopping for a new BMW. You have been researching vacation packages to Hawaii. Neither of you has mentioned repayment even once. He slumped forward with his head in his hands. What do you want from me, Mom? I want you to understand that I am not your personal ATM. I want you to recognize that kindness and generosity are not unlimited resources. And I want you to comprehend that when you treat someone badly enough for long enough, eventually they stop caring about your problems. So, you are punishing us by destroying our wedding day. The casual cruelty in that statement, that my establishing boundaries was somehow punishment, confirmed everything I had been feeling. No, Kevin. I am protecting myself by ending the pattern of financial exploitation. Financial exploitation. That is ridiculous. Is it? You have conditioned me to believe my only value to your family is monetary. You have trained me to expect scraps of affection in exchange for major financial contributions. You have made me feel guilty for having needs while you take everything I offer for granted. I sat down across from him, leaning forward so he had to meet my eyes. Yesterday, Sarah told me the greatest gift I could give your family was to disappear permanently from your lives. And you agreed with her. After everything I have sacrificed, everything I have given up, you agreed that I should just vanish. She did not really mean it. Yes, she did. And so did you. And you know what? You are going to get exactly what you asked for. He looked up sharply. What does that mean? I smiled, and it was not a pleasant expression. It means you better figure out how to fund your lifestyle without my help from now on. It means you better hope Sarah's parents are feeling generous. And it means you better start looking at apartments, because the housing situation is about to become very complicated. What are you talking about? I'm talking about the legal documents you never bothered to read when I helped with that house down payment. The ones that make me a legal co-owner of your precious property. All color drained from his face. That is impossible. Is it? Did you think my $92,000 just evaporated into thin air? But you said it was a gift. You said you wanted to help us get started. I pulled out my phone and showed him Patricia's email from the previous night. Apparently, my attorney had different ideas about protecting my investment. Would you like me to read the relevant legal documentation? This cannot be real. Sarah would have had to sign something. Sarah was supposed to sign acknowledgement forms. She kept forgetting to return them. Patricia kept all the documentation on file anyway. Kevin was shaking now. Whether from anger or fear I could not tell. You planned this whole thing. Oh, sweetheart. If I had been planning this, do you think I would have spent $16,000 on your wedding first? If I had been scheming, I would have pulled the plug months ago. The truth of that seemed to register with him. I had funded a wedding for people who told me to disappear. If I had been plotting revenge, I would have acted much sooner. So what happens now? His voice was small and defeated. Now you have choices. You can purchase my 38% ownership at current market value, Or we can sell the house and divide the proceeds according to legal ownership. We cannot afford to buy you out. The house is worth $320,000 now. 38% would be over $120,000. No. Mathematics was always my strong subject. That is probably why I have savings while you two are constantly broke. He flinched at the harsh truth. We are not broke exactly. We just have many expenses. Kevin, your combined income is $7,800 per month. Your mortgage alone is $2,600. Add car payments, credit cards, utilities, groceries, and Sarah's shopping addiction. And you spend more than you earn every single month. How do you know all those details? Because I have been covering the shortfall for the past 3 years. Did you think the money fairy was making deposits in your account? The hotel phone rang, interrupting our conversation. I answered while Kevin sat there processing his new reality. Mrs. Parker, this is Maria from Grandview Country Club. I have Sarah Mother on another line. She is asking about reinstating today reception. She says she will cover all costs if you will permit us to proceed. I looked at Kevin, who was listening with desperate hope. That is very generous of her, Maria. But I am afraid that will not be possible. Mom, please. Kevin started. I held up my hand for silence. You see, Maria, there are family dynamics involved here that make it inappropriate for me to accept payment from other family members for an event I chose to cancel. I understand completely. Should I tell Mrs. Chen that the cancellation stands? Yes, please. And Maria, send my final invoice to this hotel address. I will settle everything I owe for the inconvenience. After hanging up, I turned back to Kevin. Sarah Mother was willing to spend $16,000 to save your reception. She has been planning this wedding for 8 months. She invited everyone from her book club. How lovely for her. Unfortunately, her daughter could not manage basic civility toward the person who was originally funding everything. Kevin pulled out his phone. I need to call Sarah. We have to figure out what to do about the house situation. Go ahead. But Kevin, when you discuss our new arrangement with your wife, make sure she understands something. He paused in his dialing and looked up. I am not the same woman who left your house Friday night. That woman was desperate to maintain family harmony at any cost. This woman is finished being taken advantage of. Are you really going to force us to sell our home? I am going to exercise my legal rights as a property co-owner. What you do with that information is entirely up to you. He left without another word, probably to deliver the worst possible news to Sarah on what was supposed to be the happiest day of her life. 30 minutes later, my phone rang again. Helen. Sarah's voice was barely recognizable through her sobbing. We need to talk right now. No, dear. We really do not need to talk. You made it very clear yesterday that communication with me was not something you were interested in pursuing. I was stressed. I was overwhelmed with wedding preparations. I did not mean what I said. Of course you were stressed. It must be exhausting pretending to tolerate someone you obviously cannot stand. I do not hate you, Helen. In the 3 years since you moved into the house I helped purchase, you have never thanked me. Not once. You have never asked about my life, my interests, my health. You have never invited me anywhere unless you needed babysitting or catering or financial assistance. That is not true. When was the last time you called just to see how I was doing? Silence stretched between us. I will save you the mental effort. Never. You have never called to check on my well-being. But you are Kevin's mother. You are family. Yesterday you told me the greatest gift I could give this family was to disappear permanently. Today you are claiming I am family. Which is it, Sarah? More desperate crying. The kind of hysterical sobbing that once would have made me rush over with comfort and tissues. Helen, please. I will do anything. I will apologize publicly. I will pay you back for everything. Pay me back with what funds? You do not work, remember. You are a full-time homemaker in a house you could not afford without my money. I will get a job immediately. That is an excellent idea. You should definitely do that. But it does not change the current situation with the house ownership. What if we agree to pay you back for everything? All the money you have given us over the years. I almost laughed out loud. Sarah, sweetheart, you owe me $135,000 minimum. At $15 per hour, it would take you nearly 6 years to earn that much, assuming you never spent money on anything else. The silence that followed was the sound of reality finally penetrating her fantasy world. By 6 p.m., they had called 23 more times. I had answered none of them. Instead, I was sitting in the hotel restaurant enjoying a peaceful dinner and watching the local news coverage of what they were calling a wedding disaster at Grandview Country Club. The reporter did not mention names, but the footage of Sarah in her wedding gown crying on the club steps was unmistakable. "Excuse me, are you Helen Parker?" I looked up to see an elegant woman about my age with silver hair and intelligent eyes. She looked familiar, but I could not place her. "I'm sorry, do we know each other?" "Jennifer Chen, Sarah mother." She gestured toward the empty chair. "May I join you? This should be interesting," I thought. Jennifer sat down with the practiced poise of someone accustomed to handling social crises. "I wanted to thank you," she said, which was not what I had expected. "Thank me for what exactly?" "For showing my daughter who she really has become." The waitress appeared and Jennifer ordered wine. I waited, curious about where this conversation was headed. "I have been worried about Sarah for years," Jennifer continued. "The entitlement, the way she treats service workers, her complete lack of appreciation for anything. I kept hoping marriage and responsibility would mature her. And now I have seen how she treats the woman who made her lifestyle possible, and I am appalled." Jennifer wine arrived. She took a thoughtful sip before continuing. "I offered to pay for the reception, not because I support Sarah behavior, but because I felt responsible for the guests who were inconvenienced. But you were right to refuse." "Was I?" My daughter needed to face real consequences for her actions. The kind that cannot be fixed with mommy and daddy money or social connections. I studied Jennifer carefully. Her directness was refreshing. "She called me hysterically about the house situation," Jennifer continued, demanding that I loan them money to buy out your ownership share. I told her absolutely not. "Good for you. If she wanted to own a house, she should have treated the co-owner with respect." Jennifer reached into her purse and pulled out a business card. "I am flying back to Oregon tomorrow. If you ever want to talk to someone who understands the challenge of loving an ungrateful child, please call me." After Jennifer left, I sat alone considering my options. The nuclear option was forcing an immediate sale. Kevin and Sarah would have to find an apartment, probably in a much less desirable area. They would finally understand what it meant to live within their actual means. The merciful option was selling them my share for less than market value, maybe just what I had actually invested. They would still struggle financially but might keep their home. The vindictive option was maintaining my ownership stake indefinitely, collecting my share of property taxes and maintenance costs while watching them stress every month. As I weighed these choices, my phone rang again. This time it was not Kevin or Sarah. "Mrs. Parker, this is Officer Williams with the County Police Department. I am calling about a report we received regarding potential elder financial abuse." My blood ran cold. "Excuse me. We received a call from family members claiming you might be experiencing cognitive decline and that someone may be exploiting you financially. They requested a welfare check. Those manipulative little parasites." "Officer Williams, I can assure you I am in complete control of my mental faculties. In fact, I am thinking more clearly than I have in years." "That is reassuring, ma'am. However, we do need to follow up on these reports. Would you be available to meet tomorrow morning?" I looked around the hotel restaurant at normal people living normal lives and felt pure rage at my family's latest manipulation attempt. "Absolutely, officer. In fact, I have quite a lot to discuss with you about financial abuse. Just not the kind my family reported." After scheduling the meeting, I leaned back in my chair and smiled grimly. If Kevin and Sarah wanted to escalate this conflict, I was more than prepared to show them what real hardball looked like. The next morning, Officer Williams turned out to be a thoughtful woman in her 40s with a kind of patient demeanor that probably served her well in family disputes. We met at the police station, and I had brought my complete financial records. "Mrs. Parker, I want to start by saying the people who called seemed genuinely concerned about your welfare." "I'm sure they did. My daughter-in-law is very skilled at sounding concerned when it serves her purposes. I spread my bank statements across her desk, check after check, wire transfers, credit card payments made on their behalf, a clear pattern of financial dependency. This is quite substantial, Officer Williams said, examining the documentation. It is. And when I finally established some boundaries about how they treat me, they decided I must be mentally incompetent. I played the voicemail Sarah had left at 2 a.m. Helen, this is completely irrational behavior. Normal people do not destroy their family lives over minor disagreements. We are seriously concerned about your mental state. Maybe you need professional help. Kevin thinks you might be having some kind of breakdown. Officer Williams listened while taking notes. Has there been any history of cognitive issues, Mrs. Parker? None whatsoever. I manage my own finances, maintain my own household, drive myself everywhere. The only thing that has changed is I stopped allowing them to take advantage of me. I showed her the house ownership documents Patricia had provided. My attorney can verify that I am a legal co-owner of their property. Everything I am doing is within my rights as an investor protecting her assets. We talked for 30 more minutes. Officer Williams was thorough but fair, and by the end she seemed satisfied that I was mentally competent and financially responsible. Mrs. Parker, I am closing this case as unfounded, but I do want to provide you with some information about elder financial abuse resources. Actually, officer, I think I have the situation well under control now. As I drove away from the police station, my phone rang. Kevin again. Mom, the police called. They said they are not pursuing the welfare check. That is because I am not the one being financially abused in this relationship, son. What is that supposed to mean? It means you and Sarah have been systematically draining my resources for years while giving me nothing but disrespect in return. The officer was very interested in my documentation. Long pause. Are you threatening us? I am informing you that your manipulation tactics are not working anymore. Mom, please. Can we sit down and discuss this like reasonable adults? We can, but not at the house icon. And not until Sarah apologizes sincerely for her behavior. She is sorry. She has been crying for 3 days straight. Has she? Because the voicemail she left suggests she thinks I am mentally ill, not that she is sorry. Another pause. Where do you want to meet? Patricia Wong office. Wednesday at 3 p.m. Bring Sarah and bring a realistic proposal for how you plan to handle the house situation. What kind of proposal? Kevin, I own 38% of an asset worth $320,000. That represents my retirement security. You either buy me out at fair market value or we sell. Those are your only options. After ending the call, I realized the power dynamic had completely shifted. For the first time in years, they needed something from me more than I needed anything from them. Patricia Law Office felt like neutral territory, all mahogany and leather-bound legal volumes. Kevin and Sarah arrived 20 minutes late, clearly having argued in the parking lot. Sarah's eyes were swollen from days of crying, her usual perfect appearance completely destroyed. Helen, Sarah began immediately. I owe you a tremendous apology. I was overwhelmed and stressed, and I said horrible things I did not mean. Thank you. That is a start. She looked surprised, probably expecting immediate forgiveness. Patricia spread the house documents across the conference table. Let us review the facts. Helen provided $92,000 for the down payment. The mortgage lists her as co-borrower. The deed shows 38% ownership. Kevin studied the papers as if they might change under scrutiny. We had no idea about the ownership percentage. You would have if Sarah had completed the acknowledgement forms, Patricia replied coolly. I sent them 4 separate times. I was busy with wedding planning, Sarah said weakly. For 3 years. Patricia's tone was perfectly skeptical. I let them absorb the reality before speaking. The question is how we proceed. I have a proposal. They both leaned forward hopefully. Option 1. You purchase my 38% at current market value, $121,000. Sarah's face went ashen. We do not have that kind of money. Option 2. We list the house for sale and divide proceeds according to ownership percentages. We would have to move, Kevin said quietly. Yes, you would. To something within your actual budget. Is there an option 3? Sarah asked desperately. Well, those are your choices. Patricia pulled out her calculator. If you sold today, after realtor fees and closing costs, you would net approximately $290,000. Helen's share would be roughly $110,000. You would have $180,000 to find new housing. That is not enough for anything decent. Sarah protested. It is sufficient for a nice apartment or smaller house in a different neighborhood, I replied. The kind of place people with your actual income should be living. Kevin ran his hands through his hair. Mom, could we work out some kind of payment plan? Maybe monthly payments until we buy out your share. I had been expecting this. At what interest rate, and secured by what collateral? You have already demonstrated you do not honor financial obligations. That is not fair. Is it not? You owe me $43,000 in emergency loans you never intended to repay. Why would I trust you with another $120,000? Sarah started crying again. This will destroy our lives completely. No, Sarah. This will force you to live within your means for the first time in your adult life. But what about our credit rating? What about our social standing? I almost laughed. Your credit. Sweetheart, your credit is already terrible. You have been late on every bill for months. I know because I have been covering the shortfalls. Patricia cleared her throat. I should advise you that Helen has every legal right to force a sale. She is being generous by offering these alternatives. How long do we have to decide? Kevin asked. 30 days, I said. That should give you time to explore your financing options or start looking at apartments. As we prepared to leave, Sarah grabbed my arm desperately. Helen, please. I know I hurt you terribly, but we are family. Does that not count for something? I looked down at her hand on my arm, then at her face. For just a moment, I saw the frightened young woman behind the entitled facade. Sarah, family is supposed to count for something. That is exactly my point. 3 weeks into their 30-day deadline, I received an unexpected phone call. Jennifer Chen's voice was calm but concerned. Helen, I wanted to give you an update on the children. Jennifer had flown back to Virginia to check on Kevin and Sarah during their crisis, and what she found was not pretty. They are struggling badly. Sarah is having anxiety attacks daily. Kevin is working double shifts trying to figure out how to get a loan. They are fighting constantly about money. I poured myself tea, surprised to find I felt less satisfaction in their misery than I had expected. Jennifer, are you calling to ask me to reconsider my position? Actually, no. I am calling to tell you about Sarah's childhood. That was not what I had expected. My husband Richard spoiled our daughter beyond belief. Jennifer continued. Every tantrum was rewarded with gifts. Every consequence was eliminated with money. Every failure became someone else's fault. She paused, and I could hear her sipping something, probably coffee. When Sarah was 17, she crashed her car while texting and driving. Instead of making her face the consequences, Richard bought her a newer, more expensive car and hired lawyers to make the tickets disappear. Why are you telling me this, Jennifer? Because I have spent years watching my daughter become someone I barely recognize, and I finally understand that her problems will not be solved with more money or more rescuing. Jennifer took a deep breath before continuing. Sarah asked me to give you a check for $30,000 as a good faith payment toward buying out your share. The money comes from Richard's life insurance policy that I was saving for her inheritance. I waited, sensing there was more. I tore up the check, Helen. That was a substantial amount of money, Jennifer. Money Sarah has not earned and does not deserve. I realized that giving it to her would just continue the same destructive pattern we have been enabling for decades. Jennifer's voice became firmer. Helen, I want you to know that whatever you decide about the house, you have my complete support. Even if it means they lose their home. Even then. Especially then. Maybe having to start over will finally teach Sarah the value of hard work and genuine gratitude. After Jennifer hung up, I sat quietly processing our conversation. For 3 years, I had been enabling Sarah just as much as her parents had. Every time I covered their shortfalls or wrote checks for their emergencies, I had been teaching them that someone would always catch them when they fell. The question was, what lesson did I want them to learn now? My phone buzzed with a text from Kevin. Mom, we got approved for a home equity loan that would cover $80,000 toward buying you out. Can we meet to discuss partial payment arrangements for the remainder? I stared at the message for several minutes. They were trying, which was more progress than I had seen in years. But a home equity loan meant going deeper into debt, not learning financial responsibility. I texted back. We can discuss it, but I want to see a complete household budget and a realistic plan for paying off all your debts, not just mine. His response came immediately. Anything you want, Mom. We just want to make this right. For the first time since this nightmare began, that sounded like genuine progress. The budget meeting was revealing in the most disturbing way possible. Kevin and Sarah spread their financial documents across Patricia's conference table like evidence at a crime scene. Let us review your monthly expenses, I said, examining their bank statements. You spend $600 per month on restaurants and takeout. We both work demanding schedules, Sarah said defensively. Sometimes we are too exhausted to cook. You do not work at all, Sarah. Kevin works demanding hours. You spend your days at yoga and lunch dates. Moving down the list. $400 monthly on Sarah clothing and beauty treatments. I need to maintain appearances for social events. What social events? You do not have a job that requires professional attire. Sarah's face was reddening, but I continued reviewing their spending. $200 on premium cable and streaming services you barely use. $300 on gym memberships for facilities you visit maybe twice monthly. $700 in credit card minimum payments for what appears to be vacation and shopping debt. Kevin was frantically calculating on his phone. Mom, I know the numbers look concerning. They look like financial suicide. You are living a lifestyle that requires about $11,000 monthly when you bring home $7,000. But with the home equity loan, we could eliminate the credit card debt and significantly reduce our monthly obligations, Sarah said hopefully. I looked at Patricia, who was observing this train wreck with professional detachment. Sarah, you would be borrowing against the house to pay off credit card debt. What happens when you accumulate new credit card debt? We will not do that again. We have learned our lesson completely. Have you? Because I see no meaningful changes in this budget. You are still eating out constantly, still maintaining expensive memberships you rarely use, still treating shopping like a recreational activity. Kevin leaned forward earnestly. What would you need to see, Mom? What would convince you we are serious about changing our lives? Finally, the right question. I want to see a budget that reflects your actual income. I want to see you cooking at home, canceling unnecessary subscriptions, and Sarah getting a job to contribute to household income. A job. Sarah looked absolutely horrified. Yes, a job. You are 36 years old with a college degree. There is no reason you cannot contribute financially to your household. But Kevin earns decent money. Clearly not decent enough, since you have been supplementing it with my money for 3 years. Patricia cleared her throat diplomatically. Helen, what exactly are you proposing as a resolution? I had been considering this for days. Here is my offer. You can buy out my ownership share for $95,000 instead of the full market value of $121,000. But there are non-negotiable conditions. They both straightened with interest. First, Sarah must find employment within 60 days and maintain it for minimum 2 years. Second, you sell one vehicle and use proceeds for debt reduction. Third, you adhere to a realistic budget with no restaurant meals, no discretionary shopping, and no new debt for 24 months. How would you monitor our compliance? Kevin asked carefully. Monthly financial reviews with Patricia. You provide bank statements, credit reports, and employment verification. If you violate any condition, the full amount becomes due immediately with interest. Sarah was shaking her head vigorously. That is like financial imprisonment. No, Sarah. That is called being held accountable for your choices and learning to live within your means. They requested time to discuss privately. While they whispered intensely in the hallway, Patricia turned to me with raised eyebrows. This is either extremely generous or remarkably cruel. Cannot decide which. Maybe it is both. Maybe that is what tough love actually looks like. When they returned, Kevin spoke for both of them. "We accept your terms. All of them. Even the employment requirement." I asked Sarah directly. "Even that," she confirmed, though she looked like she was swallowing medicine. Patricia began drafting the legal agreement. "I will need this properly notarized and filed with the county recorder office." As we finalized the paperwork, I watched my son and daughter-in-law sign away their financial freedom for the next 2 years. Part of me felt vindicated. Part of me felt sad it had come to this point. But mostly I felt like I was finally teaching them lessons their parents should have taught them decades ago. Actions have consequences. Family is not a license to treat people badly. And respect cannot be purchased. It must be earned. 8 months later, I was relaxing in my new condominium, a beautiful 2-bedroom unit in a 55-plus community with amenities and social activities, when Sarah called with unexpected news. "Helen, I got promoted to assistant manager." Sarah had started as a receptionist at a veterinary clinic, and apparently had shown enough competence to advance quickly. "That is wonderful news, Sarah. How do you feel about it?" "Exhausted," she laughed, and it was the first genuine laugh I had heard from her in years. "But also proud. I never realized I was good at managing schedules and organizing systems. You always had those skills. You just never had opportunity to use them productively." There was a pause before she continued. "Helen, I owe you an apology. A real one this time, not the desperate one from Patricia office. I am listening. I was terrible to you for years. I treated you like a personal bank account and then resented you for having feelings about it. I convinced myself you were being dramatic, but the truth is I was selfish and cruel." I set down my coffee, genuinely moved by her words. "What made you change your perspective?" "Having to work for money instead of just asking for it. Understanding how difficult it is to save even $50 when you are paying your own expenses. Realizing what you sacrifice to help us build our life." Through my window, I could see other residents enjoying the community pool. I had signed up for water aerobics and made several new friends. "How are things between you and Kevin?" "Much better, actually. We communicate more now that we are not constantly stressed about money. We cook together every night. We take evening walks instead of going shopping. Feels more like a real partnership." "I'm glad to hear that. Helen, would you like to come for dinner sometime?" "Nothing fancy. Just homemade lasagna and conversation that does not revolve around financial problems." I considered the invitation carefully. The old Helen would have accepted immediately, desperate to rebuild the relationship. The new Helen had learned to maintain healthy boundaries. "I would enjoy that, but let us start with lunch at a restaurant. Small steps toward rebuilding trust. Course. Whatever makes you comfortable." After we hung up, I sat quietly processing how different this conversation felt from all our previous interactions. Sarah had sounded mature, taking genuine responsibility instead of making excuses. Maybe the lesson had finally taken hold. My phone chimed with a text from Jennifer Chen. "Heard about Sarah promotion. Thank you for not giving up on teaching her responsibility." I texted back. "Thank you for not bailing her out when things got difficult. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do is allow someone to face the full consequences of their choices. Sometimes caring means saying no when yes would be easier. And sometimes the greatest gift you can give someone is the opportunity to discover their own strength when no safety net exists." I had spent 3 years being their financial safety net, and in doing so, I had prevented them from developing resilience and self-reliance. When I finally removed that net, they had been forced to learn skills they never knew they possessed. Not because they wanted to, but because they had no other choice. Outside my window, the sun was setting over the walking trail where I regularly hiked with my new social group. Tomorrow I was having lunch with Robert, a retired teacher who had asked me out after we both volunteered at the community book fair. At 71, I was discovering what it felt like to be valued for who I was rather than what I could provide financially. And that realization was worth more than all the money I had ever given away. The greatest gift had not been my disappearance from their lives. It had been teaching them to stand on their own feet and find their own way forward. Thanks for watching my story. Please subscribe if you enjoyed it, and feel free to share your own experiences in the comments below. Remember, setting boundaries is not selfish. It is necessary for healthy relationships.